Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Bible study on Mary, the mother of Jesus, called Radical Teen Reckless Faith. I hope you enjoy it. You can do this alone or with your family or friends. It's written for teenagers and up, so I think there's something here for everybody. And I'm going to do this in parts, and this is part one. I hope to get it all put up at least by Christmas. So the first session, we're going to talk about Mary being different. So I'm going to ask you some questions about being different and peer pressure. And if you want to pause the video so you can discuss this with your group or write down some notes or just some personal reflections, that would be a good thing. Have you ever been made fun of for being different? I know I have. What were you ridiculed for? How did that make you feel? Did it cause you to change your thoughts or your actions? If so, is that what you wanted to do or thought was right? Did you regret it later? Why is it so hard for us to be ourselves and go against the crowd? Why do we give in to peer pressure so easily? Can you think of a time when you took a stand for something right and did not give in to peer pressure? If so, what happened? What do you think the world would be like if nobody worried about what anybody else thought about them and they only worried about what God thought about them? How would the world be different? I think Mary is a really good example of this, of only being worried about what God thought about her. I'm going to play this little poetry thing that talks about being different now.
Yes, I'm different. But different doesn't mean not right. Maybe we give the opinions of others too much weight. Maybe we should start to like ourselves more because we won't fit in everyone's expectations for sure. Here we are in this modern age full of glory and still love to put someone on the public pillory and hate them a bit, just because they don't fit in our currently expectation of perfection. And there are so many, I am pretty sure, who have something to say but rather keep their words away because they feel so insecure, too afraid, too ashamed, too scared to get publicly blamed. Well, yeah, I'm different, but maybe you should change your point of view because different doesn't mean not as good as you. We should go out and create our life on our own and give our identity the chance to get shown. Well, maybe some are too lazy to do this because sometimes own acting feels crazy. But before my personality gets completely crushed in this form, which is fully adapted to the actual norm, I'd rather go out to not miss a thing, instead of dreaming what life could may bring. We should start to like ourselves and feel comfortable in our skin and act how we want to, pure and genuine. I'd like to make every possible mistake, not thinking about how many rules I probably break. We should enjoy living our lives in every way and not just exist, waiting for our final day. The youth sins we haven't done are the ones we'll regret, but we fear the consequences and do nothing instead. So we rather like to be like the boring crowd, trying to get not noticed. And it makes me so sick to think about the experiences we missed. Yes, I'm different, and I'm not perfect, in no way ideal. But I'm happy to be myself, to be real. And sometimes I think that insularity is the actual symbol of beauty. And I'm rather not pretty in your eyes, but I'm proud that I don't go under in this monotonous grey crowd.
Mary was different, to say the least. You might even say she was a little bit weird, or as we say back home, she was out there. She was from Nazareth, a small town with a reputation for poverty, country accents, and being far away from civilization. They were also far away from the temple in Jerusalem and orthodox views of religion. Even those who love God and follow the scriptures were ridiculed for being lax in keeping with the traditions of the rabbis and their own man-made interpretations of the law. So they had the Torah, which was the 5 books of Moses, and then they had these extra books called the Talmud, which was like a kind of like Bible commentaries on the Torah. And so you also see Jesus in the Gospels conflicting with the Pharisees over these extra things that they had in that they interpreted the law, that they added to the law. And so that was that type of thing that they would ridicule people in Nazareth for, not for not keeping the law, but for not keeping all those traditions. Nazareth was also a favorite place for Roman soldiers to find cheap wine and cheap women for the weekend. And Mary was different when you, in consideration of all of that too, because she had kept herself pure, even though she lived in a place where it was pretty common for girls to give themselves to the Roman soldiers and have a high old time. And unlike other women mentioned in the Bible, like Sarah or Esther or Rachel, you don't hear anything in the Bible about Mary's physical beauty. Her character and purity were the only things that mattered to God. And just think, Jesus was the only person that got to pick his biological mother. So I like to think about what qualities he was looking for when he chose Mary and Joseph to be his parents. I think it's really something worth looking at and worth thinking about. But Mary had some pretty crazy ideas about God in the scriptures, especially when you compare how she understood God and the coming Messiah and all that in comparison to those of her day. None of the religious elite at that time expected the Messiah to come in the way that Jesus did. The rest of Israel didn't either. Mary's understanding of the scriptures would have been considered very radical in her day. Nevertheless, it was spot on. It was not in spite of her uniqueness, but rather because of it, that God used this teenage girl with an unorthodox open-mindedness and unadulterated faith as an instrument to bring the Son of God into the world and accomplish his great plan of salvation. If you want to look up Genesis 3:15, that's the first promise of the Messiah in the scriptures. Adam and Eve had sinned by disobeying God and eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God knew that it would be even a worse disaster if they then ate of the tree of life and lived forever in their sinful state. Think about that for a minute. That would have been hell on earth if they lived forever in their sins. So they were banished from the Garden of Eden. Adam was punished with hard work and Eve with pain in childbirth. But God did not leave them hopeless. He revealed that his plan of salvation and ultimate defeat of Satan would be through the seed of a woman. And that's where we first hear of God's plan of redemption. Only one woman in history would have this special privilege. Maybe Mary had wondered what it would be like to be the one to bring the deliverer into the world, and perhaps she'd even prayed to be the one.
Oh, pick me!
Yes, the little Sheila down the front.
Woo!
Come on up here.
It had been a long time since a promise had been made about the Messiah. At least 4,000 years. And that's if you're a young earth creationist and you add up all the dates from who was born when and how old they were when they had their kids, and you add up all those dates in the Bible, it was at least 4,000 years from the time that the Messiah was promised until the time that Mary got the announcement. And Daniel's divine arithmetic. The prophet Daniel had given clues about 500 years before Jesus was born as to when the Messiah would come. And every generation in Israel after Daniel had written this prophecy hoped that the divine arithmetic would work in their favor and that the Messiah would come in their lifetime. What most of them were hoping for was actually someone to save them from political and economic oppression, not to save them from their sins. And somehow most of the religious leaders of Jesus' time missed him altogether. But Mary didn't. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to read Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38 as you do this Bible study. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.